Dobar dan svima, hvala vam što ste došli. Bonjour à tous, bienvenue à l'Institut français ici à Novi. Juste pour dire quelques mots en français, parce qu'aujourd'hui on va parler en anglais. And finally, we're going to be talking in English, new lingua franca, so this is it. We can't do much about that, but just because we wanted to respect all the participants today, we're going to be talking English at the French Institute. Yay! My name is Ljiljana Radošević. I'm part of Street Art Belgrade crew, and I'm happy that today we are here at the French Institute in Novi that is hosting us, and that has kindly invited Kaldea, an artist from France. We also have a support of Austrian Forum, who has kindly invited Christine, and we also have really great support from a Dutch embassy that provided us with great help from Nevena. So as you can see, we are doing a program and a project that is revolving around cultural centers or embassies, because we think that it was really important to actually show good practices regarding this relationship between graffiti and street art and institutions. And since we had good luck of seeing or participating in some of these events, we thought it would be very important to actually present them in a proper way. So before we actually start with presentations, this is how we're going to work. So I'm going to say a couple of words about our participants, but also then we're going to give them an opportunity to have like 10 to 15 minutes presentation about the projects that they've been working on, that we wanted them to show and to tell us about. And then we're just gonna, enter the discussion, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. And yeah, we're here, it's pretty nice and comfortable surroundings, so I hope you won't have problem with asking the questions. So, as I said, Christine Koblitz is actually a person who is working in a city museum in Vienna, and she's actually the one who suggested and produced an exhibition in 2019 that is called Takeover, where the museum actually gave possibility to graffiti and street artists to kind of enter this like a very short time span of 1 month when the museum went out because of the renovation, and before the renovation started they had 1 month. They let the artists do whatever they did, and she was managing them and managing everything, and it kind of at the end really was amazing. So, but actually the consequences of this exhibition are something that we want to talk about more. So welcome, Christine. And then Nevena Nikolić is working with the Dutch embassy regarding all things that have anything to do with culture. Very, very busy. Luckily for us, so we get a lot of good projects coming from that part of the world. And they organized a really amazing project, female role models in Serbian, izuzetne žene Srbije. I think maybe that would have been better even in English, extraordinary women of Serbia. But okay, like female role models is quicker and it's still good. And I was lucky enough to participate in one small process regarding that project, so I saw how complex and how full of different, very intriguing things have been happening there, both on the side of artistic work and on the side of this relationship with municipalities, institutions, and how that had been happening. And at the end, but very important still, Kaldea, our resident street artist, I say that because she's been in Serbia many times now, and she left some really amazing artwork after her. She's been visiting mostly the festival that is called All Girls Street Art Jam, that is organized by TKV, and it's happening every couple of years. I would say it could have been biennial, but sometimes it's triennial because you never know how things are going to work out. But you know, it's still happening, and this year it's going to happen again. So if you are in Belgrade at the beginning of October, please stop by Dorčo Plac, and you will be you will see the artists working there. This year we're going to have at least 10 of them, I think. But yeah, Kaldea actually brought to our street the style and approach that is something that we haven't had a chance to see. We have extraordinary artists, both male and female, but it's always interesting to see something new and something that is inspired by different cultures, by different styles that we would normally have a chance to see. And she's an extraordinary human being on her own right, so on that side we have, you know, plus plus. So I would first ask Kaldea to do her presentation, and then we can continue. Thank you.
All right. Hello. So I'm Kaldea. I'm an artist born in France and living around Paris. And I'm doing art since 15 years, approximately. And I start doing art on the street, like street art graffiti, around 2011. And I get an opportunity back in time to make an exhibition in Germany. So I made this exhibition in Germany, and then I decided, because in this exhibition I was painting on container and on car, and then I decided that if I can paint that big, then maybe I can paint on wall. And this is how it started. It started first in Germany. And then I painted in France, and in the street of Paris, of course. And then from this moment I met many people in the graffiti scene, and I started to paint around the world. So basically I never studied art. I learned all by myself, and a brush, find my style, painting with spray can. I'm really like a self-taught artist. And so basically my style, it's a mix of many stuff. I'm very attracted by our culture, okay? So I try to mix different styles from different culture. For example, when I start to paint, my style was heavily influenced by Japanese, like geisha, Japanese theater like kabuki. And then it's evolved from time to time. It evolved with my, how can I say that, with my traveling. In each country I travel, I always try to pick up some influence from the country and to put it on my style, on my board or on my canvas. For example, when I was in Thailand in 2018, I was very, very inspired by the temple and the beauty of the fabric, of the style around there. And then I make a full canvas about my trip in Bangkok, so yes. And so I mix basically different styles from different countries. And then I have my personal taste, like fantasy, I like video game, I like comics, I like manga. So I like Art Deco, for example, Art Nouveau, and all this stuff I put it in my heart, you know. So it's really like a mix of all the stuff I like and all the culture that I like and that I mix during my traveling. Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I would ask Christine to join us and do your presentation now. Yeah, but first we should give a shout out to Kaldea because you have brought some images and this is Kaldea. So if you're wondering what this picture really means.
Okay.
So, but I see Alexander has already almost started our presentation. No, keep going. This
you want to start here?
Yeah, okay. We will start with some images. To give you an impression on a huge project that we did in summer 2019. As Ljiljana explained, I work in the Wien Museum, which is the city museum of the city of Vienna. It hosts a collection of more than 1 million objects ranging from the Romans to Klimt and contemporary art. So we have more than 20 branches all over the city center with quite a huge institution. And our main building is under refurbishment right now, and we have been negotiating with the city of Vienna, who is funding the museum for a very, very long time, because the museum building is old and it's breaking apart, and we need more space because we want to show more. And when we learned that we would get the money for the refurbishment finally, we started immediately planning how to get it going, and also we knew that there are several stages. Of course, we have to move everything out, and then we would have a short amount of time where the museum building would be empty. It would be like an abandoned building in some ways, in other ways not, which is not so practical for doing graffiti because it's under monument protection. And we wanted to do a big show and also okay, what can we do? And I'm quite interested in street art, and I proposed to our director shall we do something with street art? And he said yeah, let's do it. And we had less than a year planning time. And Alexander, if you move to the next, just to give you an impression, that's the building. It's located right in the city center, so it's almost the inner district. It has, it's a building from the 50s, it's 3 floors, and on the ground floor, on the first floor, this we dedicated to the show called Takeover, and you can already see, we were also allowed to do a mural outside on the facade, and we were happy to have the most famous painters Austria has, for Isa and Heitschers, to do a collaboration because they're also part of the Weird crew, and that's what they did for us. And you can also see outside there is the wooden structure. This became an outdoor mural for everybody to join us and to paint. And we had short amount of time, no time practically to prepare the ground or whatever, and also we didn't want to do it. So the idea was the building is as it was left, and in some parts you will still have remains of the museum work, old posters. You can make use of this, or if you don't want, you have to find another wall. And also not only the walls that you would normally use for an exhibition can be used, but the whole building is going to be refurbished, so of course you can paint on other surfaces too. So the elevator, why not? The glass window for the staircase, why not use it? And we also, you can see also from the styles, of course everybody is into pretty muralism, and we all want to have things looking nice, but graffiti is about more, and so we invited several artists. And there is one guy who was actually in some ways initial for the whole project. He's called Skill. He has been painting in a museum. He was one of the first guys ever to paint at Wien Museum, like already in 2016. And I mean, the discussion that we would be on the refurbishment has been going on for a very long time. And so he said, like, when you're closing, I want to come painting again. And so like this was like an idea that was in the back of my mind. So and then of course we invited him and was like, yeah, what do you want to do? We invited practically a lot of artists from Vienna, and like the questions we asked, I'm not an expert, so the questions we asked were, whom shall we invite? And like when these matched several times, I'm like, okay, we started talking to people, and of course we had some guys we had on our list already. And the other question is like, what do you want to do? And Skill, he said like, yeah, I want to do this wall, and he has a style with these thin, narrow lines that actually fits the original architecture very well. And nobody would usually want to paint around the windows, but for him it was perfect, and so it was a huge thing he did. And then, like I already explained, we have Nigels. He's a famous Austrian street artist, now living in LA, and he was in Vienna for some time for us, and he did the biggest wall. Then also, when you're in a museum, like, what do you want to do? You can paint the wall, you can paint any surface, and some artists wanted to play with the fact that they are in a museum, in an institution, and of course, painting on the streets is one thing, but if you're inside, you do probably some other kind of work. And we had Paul Busk, who did a huge stencil. He was like, we also asked him, like, what do you want to do? And he said, like, I want to break through a wall. And we said, like, come on, I know we are gonna be under refurbishment, but it's monument protection. And like, can you please do something simple? And he said, like, no, I really want to break through a wall. And we're like, okay, shit. He really wants to do it, and we thought for a while and said like, yeah, but we have one wall actually that is standing alone in the exhibition space. It has been there for like 20 years, never moved, nobody knew what was inside. Of course we knew then it was wood, and so like, yeah, you can do it, but you have to do it yourself, you know? It's not like exhibition and then there's like workers coming and doing it, you can do it yourself. And they're like, okay, I will do it. He regretted it sometime, but like he has been there. It took him a week to set up the whole of this, but like you can see the different stages of creating the stencil. And of course, if you have a stencil, you have to use it as a stencil. So he did a big spraying action with the fire extinguisher, which is also something in graffiti. It's kind of legendary, and you want to do it, but of course it's messy because you have to fill up the stuff, and it only, you start pumping, and it goes like for 1 second, you have color, and then it's going to be empty again, and you have to refill it, and you have to do it again. So he had to do the process several times, but like, we ended with this wonderful bust, yeah. And also you can see that a friend of his, he painted the floor, and like, you can move to the next picture. So that's like the whole setup, and in the end, you have Scaro, who's a musician, and also one of the first guys who did graffiti in Vienna. Yeah, next. What kind of presentation is this? Okay. Yeah, I've been changing it today for a few times. So, another guy who was playing with like being in a museum, doing street style, but also museum style. So he created his handwriting, his hand style in a 3D character. Yeah. So, and of course, we could not, this was also the first show about Viennese street art that we did. We didn't know by the time we started doing this project, because like we wanted just to paint the whole building and do something different, but while we were talking to others, to artists, they told us like, no one has been doing this. It's good that you are doing it for the first time now, and of course everybody should take part, and we would have wanted it the same way, but of course not everybody can take part in such a project. But several artists made several efforts to bring everybody in, and one attempt was to have a wall where all the names of all the writers of Vienna are written as a tribute wall. So Fecht devoted his wall to all sprayers of Vienna, and sometimes you can see that the alphabet is not correct because he forgot someone, because next to his wall was Stefan Vogren, who is actually hosting the big archive, the Street Art Archive in Vienna, Spray City. He did a similar thing with images, and so they didn't know that they would be next to each other or what each one was doing, but then they kept checking on each other, like, did we forget someone? It was actually quite nice. And we also had like different aspects. Another guy, he hid some Urban Explorer instruments in a wall that you could only enter if you are daring enough to explore behind the walls. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, and you see a mural by three great ladies, the Rip-Off crew. They did one of the first murals they did together in the museum, and now they're like the female crew who's rocking it all in Austria, actually. And here they are united in struggle. Yeah, so I'm pretty proud. And as I said, like you can use all areas, and not everybody feels comfortable to draw on a clean surface and to be like have the biggest wall or the most shining wall or to make the super nice impression. And as I said, street art is a lot about muralism, but it's also about graffiti. And we also asked, like, whom do you think we would normally not get? Who should be in there? Who is important? Who has been doing a lot? And then many guys referred to one guy called Maler, which is actually a literal translation of painter. And he's only painting in abandoned buildings. And whenever someone would discover a new building, and they would think like, hey, we discovered a new space, they would realize one guy has been there before, that was Mahler. And he was like, also, I mean, there's a reason why he's not moving around in the nice established places. And when we invited him, he was like, a bit impressed and curious, of course, what does the museum want from me? But I don't really feel comfortable. And said like, hey, I know, but what would you feel comfortable with? You can have any space you like. And he said like, somebody doing the toilets? And I said like, no, they're yours. And we had toilets actually that have been out of order for a while because the museum was a broken building already, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what he did. And we only asked him to do it in a way that like nobody would come to the idea that this is still a working toilet. And so he put the empty cans that all the other artists left, so he collected the garbage actually as well and made an installation. So this is how he started. And by the time we opened it looked like this. And also, I mean, people have been painting in the museum for the setup and like tagging the walls already and leaving some little tributes already in the toilet. And of course, all the audience was also invited to contribute. And this is how it looked in the end. Okay. So this place evolved and changed, and it became the secret highlight because, I mean, it's not the first thing you see, but then also something where you can leave your traces, and it looked like a club toilet after 20 years. This was like after 2 months, so we had 2 months time actually. Yeah, but so you've already seen like many people were attending. There was, of course, like they were not sure from the museum side, will people be interested in doing, in us having a street art show? And yes, they were. So we had like a huge opening. And yeah, you have seen the intro video. Next. Yeah, we also had like, the show was called Takeover Street Art and Skateboarding. We had 2 floors, and on the ground floor, we also had a huge skate park made of concrete, built by a crew that is also doing now official skate parks, but that was doing illegal skate spots as well. So, and on the ground floor, it was a whole interactive level. We had a huge workshop, DIY area where people could come and also paint on the walls. The only thing in the museum building under monument protection, and a museum building that is not an abandoned space, but a closed building where you cannot open any windows. So spray cans were not the biggest and best idea to use. So people could come and paint, but usually only with any other form markers, not spray cans. Yeah. So that's it. after the 2 months, the show closed, but we made a book that survived, so this was it. Yeah, I think I've taken more than the 10 minutes, but I could keep talking about it forever.
We'll keep talking about it. So.
Thank you. And now, Nevena, your turn.
Thank you very much. Do you like the slideshow? Well, I will just start how we came to the idea about the female role models, because human rights, among which gender equality is really big on the Dutch agenda in the Netherlands and also in the countries where the Netherlands has representation, and we wanted to do something about that in Serbia. It is now gaining bigger attention, but still there is discrimination against women, and we wanted to do something really big to show that there were some exceptional women, and we also wanted to do something that is related to Serbia and that really resonates with people. And this is how we decided to choose successful women from Serbia, actually that we call female role models, and we wanted to paint murals to them in different cities in Serbia. And we also, since we decided it has to be big, this is how we came to murals. Yes, you can. It's okay. It's just to show my appreciation for the street art. Actually, once when I was given a chance to try and make a mural myself, I realized how difficult and complicated it is, and I'm no mistaken, I'm not a street artist, but I really am happy to be able to enable street artists to do their job, and I'm very thankful for being invited here to speak with all these amazing women about street art. You can move to the next one already. This is just to show my happy face when this was happening. First step for us was actually to choose these 10 women. This was very difficult, and our natural partner was the Center for Women's Studies from Belgrade, who are really exceptional women who know a lot about feminist history, and so they made a bigger selection, and for us the most difficult thing was actually to choose 10 women out of these 20-something, because basically they were all exceptional. But we had to look into geography to spread it a little bit around Serbia, not to have everything centrally located, then to have different professions, and to choose women that are lesser known to the Serbian public. So this is how we came to these 10 women, and of course next step for us was, which is also a topic of our panel today, was to contact actually municipalities where we were going to paint these women. And this is where we got in contact with municipalities in 10 different cities in Serbia. I will later mention which cities they are. But we felt that they need to feel ownership of the project in order for this to be successful, and we wanted to make them part of it. And also, let's be honest, we needed them, because you don't just go to a city and paint a mural. This way we ensure better protection and better visibility. And I have to say that at this first round of discussion, of conversations and pitching the idea, they were all in. Everybody liked it, because it was basically a perfect gift given to them. We did all the organization, we did all the support, so everybody immediately was on board. Then we had a jury comprised of Serbian and Dutch experts, and we are happy and honored that Ljiljana was one of those. And we also had very nice street artists representing the Street Art Museum from Amsterdam, Judith de Leeuw, very young and already very famous, doing some impressive walls around the world. And after we selected the jury, we opened call for artists, and this is just how we were presenting women. For every city we presented women. We just showed this without telling them any bigger story. We basically invited or hinted at artists that they should do their own research. And we did not expect to receive that many entries, but we did receive over 70, and this was the second most difficult task, was to choose 10 best. Embassy had no saying in this, I have to say, but it was very interesting to listen to the discussion of the jury and how they did it. This is just a little picture to illustrate the spin-off of this, because we didn't realize basically when we started, and we said we wanted something big, we didn't realize how big it was actually, how big it's going to become, because now I like to say that this project has a life of its own. So we ourselves did some spin-offs, and this is one of them, where we had a street art conference, because we also wanted to take care of the artistic part, not only gender equality, but also to do, and this is one image from the conference where we actually showed our previous street art project, which we did with TKV Cultural Center Grad in Belgrade back in 2016. Apart from this conference, there were many other initiatives. We were invited by Documentary Film Festival, DocuFest, to do something with this. Also veterinary faculty, which was designed by one of the architects, one of the selected women, and so on. So this is, we even had a Dutch company named Rose after Jelisaveta Načić. So there is really going on, and still much will happen. We will also public publication of these women, but once all the walls are finished. So I think in the end, with every mural that we do unveiling, we also do a debate on gender equality. So, for example, with Ljiljana Radošević, which you see here in Kragujevac, was a famous Serbian composer, so we did a debate on women in music, so women in architecture, women in sport, and so on. And I think now you can move to the next one. I would like to show you these 10 women, and some of them are finished murals, which you will see, like the first one. This is Nevena Nikolić in Kruševac, was the famous Serbian athlete who actually died only last year. Some of these will be sketches, a couple of them are still not finished. So please move to the next one. It's in Požega, Brana Perović. She was the first female director of the Physics Institute in Vinča, our physicist. It was done, the first one in Kruševac was done by Marija Savić-Komarac, very important to mention. This one in Grocka was done by Vuk Đurić. Next one, I don't know, this is Stevan Šoln, who did in Niš mural for Jelena Dimitrijević, who was a famous writer, and we discovered she was writing even erotic prose back in the 19th century, which was quite something, and wrote about women in harem, for example, so it was quite interesting. Next one, please. This is Ljubica Marić, the composer whose mural was done in Kragujevac by Katarina Falke. If you notice the very nice writing on her hair, it's the music from her. It's the music from her compositions and the lyrics from her compositions. Next one was actually only inaugurated today in Niš, which is Jovanka Bončić-Katerinić. That is the mural that is done by Tamara Osmajlić and Stefan Stojanović. She was a first architect actually even in Germany, not only in Serbia. And we will do something with the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in Belgrade, because she was the one to design this one. This is Hafiza Demirović in Tutin. She was a politician and a lawyer, very progressive lady who stood up even against the Communist Party back in the day. Her mural was done by Andrej Kolosov, still not inaugurated, on 6th of October. If you're in Sanjak, we will welcome you in Tutin. Next one, please. This is the latest, and this is the mural by Marija Šoln in Belgrade, in Lower Dorćol, dedicated to Gina Ranjičić, and I think both these women are quite impressive. And Marija, who made this sketch and the whole research, but also Gina Ranjičić, who was a Roma poet who in 19th century wrote in 4 or 5 different languages. So this one will still wait for its, well, inauguration we cannot say, because the murals are already visible. They're not something you can hide, but for a debate, and so we will follow up in October. This one is still a sketch. This is Jelisaveta Načić, a famous Serbian architect who maybe you know designed, for example, the famous stairs in Kalemegdan and Church Ružica also, so quite famous architect. And these are the only two women, two architects. Others are different professions. This sketch is done by Andrej Josifovski, pianist, our famous street artist, who, by the way, I have to mention now, has as his guest Judith, who was mentioned before as member of our jury. This is really the direct follow-up of our project. Judith is now at the moment doing mural in Bežanijska Kosa in Belgrade as part of Pianista's Runaway Festival. This is Vera Crvenčanin Kulenović, who, and this is still a sketch. The girls that are known as speakers in color, Dunja Čorlomanović and Sara Milojević, have won with this sketch for a mural in Novi Sad. Unfortunately, this is still a mural that is waiting for its wall to happen. And this is Mitra Mitrović, first Serbian female minister of culture. This is also still a sketch. This is another one who is waiting for a wall to be painted, done by Ljiljana Radošević, also very famous Serbian artist. So now this is the end of the slideshow, but maybe just to conclude with a couple of words, because the whole idea was, as I understood, to discuss about cooperation with institutions. So maybe a couple of things about this. We started this project in October last year with the idea to launch it in March around the International Women's Day, 8 March, and hoping to finish by May. Now we are in September, so this speaks for the complexity of the project, but also communication and cooperation with institutions. For me, it was very interesting to see how 10 different municipalities function completely differently under the same law. Somewhere there are cities who have who have a commission for murals, which I was really positively surprised. But then there are cities who wait for their mayor to get over COVID in order to scout the city for the walls. So we've been really seeing different kind of things, and they generally all like the idea and want to do it, but sometimes when it comes to implementation it becomes complicated because street art is not something that they're used to. It's not a debate, it's not an exhibition in a gallery, but something that they have to think a little bit outside of the box, and this is also an experience, and they are mostly willing to learn and do it. And so my key to success to this project is to find one person that will do the job, and this is how it happens. This is how it happens, and you really, once you get the right person, then you can agree on everything and so on. But again, I also realized it is better to present it to more people so that more people is aware and that more people has the ownership and feels the ownership of this, so that this one person doesn't have to fight an internal battle within their own institution. I have to say, in the end, this couldn't have happened without municipalities, because we cannot simply find all these great walls, and as you have seen, some of them are small, some of them are huge. It was really, even though we gave original standard in order for artists to be able to know what they're dealing with, but in the end it ended up like this, and we also actually like it that it's so diverse. And working with municipalities not only really helps the project and makes the project happen, but it also helps preserve the mural. They often themselves put light on it, take care of it, and some cities like Kragujevac, they like the idea, they want to do their own murals of other famous people from Kragujevac, and so on. And one big advantage that I see is that it also attracts the crowd that is not usually attracted to street art. So this is, I have mixed feelings when cooperating with them, but it's like with some friends. You cannot live with them, you cannot live without them. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nevena, and thank you all for telling us a little bit about your work, because I know all of this projects are quite complex and it takes a lot of time to do them, takes a lot of effort, and then like putting everything in like 10 or 15 minutes just doesn't really work. But the reason why I was proposing this particular discussion is that street art and graffiti are meant to be outside. And they're meant to be done by the artists that are not really interested in institutions, because like that they have a power to give their art, to give their opinion, to do something without the process of selection that usually happens in galleries and in museums or any other institution they're working with. But they're still human beings. They develop, they grow, they want to become artists, and then they need to collaborate with institutions. So now we need to actually figure out what is like a good balance where institution can gain from what these graffiti and street artists can give, and what street artists and graffiti writers can gain from the institution. So this is, as I said, a very fine balance, very thin line from like something that can be overdone and overused to something that is like just the right amount. But since we already talked about this, I wanted to ask Kaldea to tell us as an artist, so from like the first person point of view, can you actually tell us something of how you started to collaborate with institutions? Because, as I said, you were here at the all-girls street art jam, so that one is organized by an artist herself, but it still needs to be organized. And then, of course, you needed to ask for help from the French institutes and from some other institutions. So what is your experience in working with institutions, not only with the French Institute, but in general?
Okay, so what's my experience with the institution generally? From my experience, it was always very good because, and I'm only talking about my experience. When I work with institution, like it's French Alliance or different embassy, it was always very well prepared and very, very serious, always on point. So for me, it was always positive. And I will say that this is most of my positive experience was with this kind of institution. A part of events were organized by artists. With institutions like Embassy and Alliance, Goethe Institute, it was always great, perfect, in my opinion, all right. Even when they find a spot where to paint, they always find someone to be with you, like kind of assistant, not necessarily to paint with you, but just to help you, This was for example, my experience in Thailand, when I was in Thailand. It was organized by French Embassy and Goethe Institute, and I remember that they give me, I was with a French girl, and she was not painting with me, but she was just like, help me, like, do you want something? I can take you to this spot, here is the paint, So, and this kind of points are very important for artists, trust me, because sometimes you arrive in some event and there is nothing, just you and your spray can, Nobody to help you, nobody to tell you what to do, are you hungry or what, So, from my experience, it was always good.
Okay, good to hear. That means that things are actually changing, because 10, 15 years ago, graffiti and street art were still like too controversial to be put in official institution, and it wasn't always, artists were not always taken care of, and they were not really given what they needed in order to produce their good pieces of art. So I'm glad to hear that things are getting better.
Oh yeah, but maybe I arrived at the right time, you know. Maybe when I have to deal with the institution, it was maybe the right time, you know, when they start to take the artists seriously, you know. I mean, from my experience, I mean, I started to work with the institution around 2018, you know. I'm not talking about school or how do you say maybe in English? I don't know if someone is
Municipality, no?
yes, this kind. I'm not talking about them. I'm really talking about French embassy, Goethe Institute, you know, this kind, you know. From this, in 2018, it was cool. Before, I don't know. And if I'm now talking about other institutions like mairie municipal, for example, sometimes could be good, could be not that good, you know. It depends, really.
Okay, now that you mentioned municipalities, I think we can actually ask Nevena to tell us a little bit more about this issue in Serbia. Yeah, just can you tell us something more, some interesting story?
I knew you wanted some juicy stories. I'm actually speaking from an institutional point of view because I work for the embassy, and I can say that I imagine it's the same for you. If we invite artists to do something, we make sure that they have everything, we provide everything, we organize everything, because this is something we thought about, this is something we selected, and this is something we want to do. On the other hand, I also see local institutions like municipalities or town halls that are a little bit more, I find always them a little bit more traditional, and also this is understandable because they have certain rules, they have certain administration, and we at an embassy, especially at the Dutch embassy, can be quite flexible and do our own thing, whereas in town halls and institutions in a country, I don't know how is it in France, but in Serbia it can be quite a slow institution. As I said, first they all really liked the idea because they also liked this is something they hardly ever do themselves. Then it's a project with an embassy, they get a nice thing, they do something nice for their town, so they get good publicity and they really do something nice, they promote women of their own town. On the other hand, it is not always easy. Sometimes it's simply out of ignorance. They haven't done it, and they don't always know how to do it. So we had also there was a special commission residing about decision on the mural, wall, and the sketch, and we had the strangest request to cover shoulder of one of these women, which we thought, okay, how are we going to communicate this to the artist? But then we said, listen, we want to do this and we don't want you to compromise, so it takes a little bit of diplomacy to find. On the other hand, I understand them. They do things, traditional things in a certain way. For me, this was unbelievable, but then I gave it a thought and I realized, okay, I have to see it from their point of view a little bit. They didn't realize this was artistic license, not really something that they do. Then, yeah, some of them, for example, Kruševac was really a great example. That's why Nevena Nikolić was the first one. They really did it in a month. Everything was arranged, everything was really super fine, and sometimes I even felt like, okay, we are probably not this professional, what do they think of us? So there are really good examples, but basically for me, once you find the right person, once you give the good idea, good pitch, if they are on board, they are on board. On the other hand, I'm also speaking from the perspective of the embassy. I can imagine a street artist going to the mayor and asking him or her to do something. It would probably be more difficult. But there were quite some funny stories. I think the covering of the shoulder wins the cake, but but also we were sometimes given very small walls. Sometimes we had once a nice wall, but it was completely falling apart, and we said, yeah, but we don't want to do the project. Yeah, we will renovate in a year, so you can do it there. We said, no, we want this to last. Then we had the artist calling us, what do I do? They put up a scaffold which is actually shaky and they want me to sign the waiver. And we said, well, go back immediately, don't sign anything. It takes sometimes, and I also see the people that I communicate with, sometimes they struggle within their own institution. So it's really, you cannot make a general picture, apart that they in the end all make it happen and that they all actually like it, and it is a bigger success than if we did it alone.
One of my nightmarish experiences when I organized the wall for the Irish Festival. We started in spring 2018, immediately after St. Patrick's Day, and it was finished this year. Yes. So you never know. So whenever you mention Kruševac, I'm like, in a month, like that's impossible.
We really felt like amateurs ourselves.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you, Christine, because we saw that you work with over 50 artists. So you're a cool person, and we all know that, but the point is you had to represent your institution. You had to stand up for something that is like official law, something that is like this or like that. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your experience in working with that many artists?
Well, first you have to have very good nerves, because with artists they do art, and their art is the best, and of course it's worth seeing, and they know what is best, and whatever institution is doing anything about it, you can never trust the institution, and especially not for street artists. So this is actually something that is in their minds, especially I think with street art, or with graffiti artists even more, because graffiti is also, it's like a rough spirit that is very contradictory to everything that has to do with institutions, because it's pretty much against the system. Be on the street, be visible, do it yourself. And of course, we were very much aware of this difficult situation, and I've done street art projects before, smaller ones, of course, but so I already have learned my lesson, like, okay, you have an idea, you develop it together, and in the end, if you're lucky and they're willing to join, something bigger will happen, something that none of you alone would have been able to create. You get more visibility in the end, and the institution helps for one thing, for visibility, and it's also about negotiating or translating what the artists are doing to a bigger and wider public, even though as a street artist, of course, you have all the public you can ever have because you're on the streets. In the end, there were a lot of visitors, our normal visitors, which are aged 60 plus, which is not the normal street art audience that you would guess. I mean, there were a lot of young people also coming for the first time ever to the museum. But we also had like our normal visitors. They said like, now for the first time, we understand a bit more about the people that we see in the streets every day, because of course they are also part of the city, they also see these murals and they are also impressed. And now they knew them some names and could tell some stories about it, and so they were happy and said like, wow, that's what we did and that's what we managed. And also artists were happy in the end, but I got a lot of talk about like people telling me which show they had like been invited to and that did not turn out the way they wanted it to be, or the way it was promised in the beginning, blah blah blah. So there was a lot of that, and like I said, like, yeah, I know probably you have made some bad experiences. I cannot promise you that this won't happen again. I can only say this is what we offer. You have a chance to take part in it, take it or leave it. If you want, you're welcome. These are our conditions. You have a lot of freedom. In the end, they were happy, and like, I think you can never be sure, and only talking to many people is not the only solution. It's a beginning, but they were also like, somehow they they understood what we wanted to do, and that it was also for them a once-in-a-lifetime chance. And like, as you saw, it's a huge building in the city center. It's not a chance you get every day, and also like being invited to a museum for an artist is a nice thing. In the end, you have to say that. I mean, it feels a bit cheesy saying it like this, but that's the way it is. And like, they were in the opening night, they came with their friends and celebrated. But of course, at some point, I saw each and every one of them with their families, and like, you know, they have already grown up, and like the parents probably said like, what is this guy doing in the streets? It's illegal stuff, and now he's in the museum, and so it was also a thing for some of them to settle with their families. Yeah.
These are always great stories, and as I said at the beginning, you know, they are human beings. They're growing, they're evolving. They need to be visible and to be recognized if they really want to be artists. So it's like completely normal thing to feel. But like, what I'm most impressed about your exhibition is that actually when we saw one of the photos from your presentation, is how many young people were hanging around. It's like museum was open, they could come and go and do, you know, just like hang around the museum. This is something that used to happen actually, well, not really in the museum, but in front of the museum, in the city center of Belgrade, in front of the National Museum. There used to be a place for the skateboarders. So it's like, it's a clean space, you just use it. So for a long time they've been, you know, there. Now it's not the case anymore, but I'm really, and I think we probably talked about it before, but I think that attracting this notoriously hard to attract audience, so people in high school and young adults, and you had like 80% of audience that represented that part of the public. It must have been like amazing thing. So what I'm wondering now is how the other institutions and museums in the city of Vienna actually saw your exhibition, and I think they must have been jealous. I mean, of course, like you can't really say something like that about the public institution, but I'm pretty sure that they were. So my question would be, how did they see your institution? Did you have any feedback from other museums or other large institutions that deal with culture? And were they actually asking for the recipe, how to attract younger audience?
Well, there are several big museums in Vienna, of course. We're the biggest institution there, but each has a different collection and also a different approach to the audience. And so I think they saw it and they respected us very much for that. And we also got like high acclamation from the museum world, but it's not like, and also the audience, that people came up to me and said like, yeah, can you do this again, and this should last for longer, and things like that. And they're like, yeah, I understand you, I feel you, and I'm glad that you like it, but it's like all shows that we are doing, it's temporary. That's a thing that museums do. Exhibitions last just for a short amount of time, and if you're going to ask me, are we going to do this again and invite other artists? Probably not for a while, because like we have a lot of other stories to tell from our collection, and it's not like our main mission to be a street art museum. It was the perfect thing to do at that point of time. We did it, and we are glad that you liked it, and we did it, I have also to say, admission free, because with street art there's always like, who is making profit? And we said like, we don't want to make any profit, even though of course yeah, whatever. It was a way also to say it's an open space, you can come whenever you like. We had different opening hours so that no one would feel excluded and like have to pay for it. Yeah, so it was a gift.
Okay, and now just connecting, you know, this topic to Kaldea. So I'm also wondering, like, when you do these large events, when you're visiting around the world, I'm wondering, like, what kind of audience do you get? And do you actually get to communicate to the audience? And like if you're working with an institution, can you see the difference between the audience that comes from the institution, or you see the difference between the audience that just comes from the streets, just regular people that are visiting?
Your mic is off.
Yeah, no, my microphone. Can you just repeat the question?
The question, yeah. So maybe the most important part is when you do the mural. So people are just walking around and visiting. I'm wondering, do you see any difference between between the projects that you do with an institution, or with the festival, or some other like informal organization, difference in the audience, like basically who comes and talks to you and why do they talk to you, and
Okay, I'm going to repeat your question, then I'm sure. So if there is a difference in the audience from an event organized by an institution and an audience from an event organized by something else which is not an institution?
Yes.
Alright, let me think. I'm going to say no. I mean, I haven't seen like a difference from the audience. I mean, actually it depends if you are doing a mural inside or outside. Then there might be a little difference in the audience. Alright? But there's no difference. If it's an institution or not, there's no difference. For me, it's more like if the event is organized in a private place, or in a public place, then the audience is a little bit different. And for me it will be different because if you are outside, then anybody can come to you, Sometimes good people, sometimes funny people, sometimes crazy people. When it's in a private inside area, so it could be organized by an institution or, I don't know, like a crew, whatever, then it's a little bit different because the people who come to see you, they make the step to come, So it's, most of the time, these people who like street art, they come to see you in private place, than in the public space. Public space for me it's more open, than in a private, inside a private place. You know what I mean? But from an institution or not, I'm trying to think, but I don't think. Maybe okay, yes. Not a long time ago, at the end of August, I was doing like a mural in a school, private school, business private school. So yes, the audience was mostly students, international students who were studying business. So yeah, I never had this kind of audience in my life. So from this, then that's the main differences from this institution. I never had this kind of international student from Bangladesh, China, Albania, France, young and study business, and they are there and they are asking me questions and they are looking at my work and they like it. So yes, that's might be the difference from this institution.
Okay, this is actually maybe the point of my question, is that it doesn't really matter what is your background. Do you know anything about art or not? If you get interested, and usually that happens if you have like a possibility to communicate with the artist, if you get interested, then suddenly everything opens up for you. Like the streets are different, the walls are different, the surrounding is different. You just start looking at it with completely different eyes. So in that sense, like communicating with an artist is really essential. But when we're on that topic, like do you have maybe some interesting stories to tell us about the audience here in Belgrade, in Serbia, when you were here in Serbia?
Oh, the audience in Belgrade. I would say, I mean, it was mainly in. Now I'm trying to remember. Okay, let's take the example of Novi Sad, because I was
Excellent,
outside.
since we are in Novi Sad.
Yes, because I was outside, because Deutsche Platz, it's public but kind of private. You have to come in. You have to come in and to notice something or to know this place. While in Novi Sad, it was just near the fontaine. I think it's a fontaine.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
In the center.
Yes.
Yeah, in the city center.
Yes, in the center.
Yeah, it was near this place. Okay, but then I will be very nice. I'm gonna be very nice, but the audience there was very, very nice. Nice kids, very polite, speaking English, which in France they don't speak English, the kids. Sorry to French people, but it's true. And they were very enthusiastic, actually, very enthusiastic. I remember there is this Serbian guy. He spoke French because he lived in France, and he came to me and he was looking at me painting. Was there with his daughter, and he brought me a cake, you know, like thanks for the art, you know. There is this little girl. She's very nice, very pretty, and very shy, and she was a ballerina, you know, and she was just looking at me and asked me questions, you know. And I would say that's the audience there in Novi Sad. I think they were very curious because maybe it was for them unusual to see this kind of event in this place. And they were very interesting in it. And not like, sorry, I have to move my computer because the sun is on my face and this is not cool. And I would say that they were curious and maybe a little bit intrigued. Do you know this word? I don't know if it's... Yes, okay.
Intrigued.
So that's a good one. Intrigued, because maybe then it's not always that you have this kind of event in Novi Sad in this place, but mostly they were nice, you know, and curious. Yes.
Excellent. So this is a good motivation for all the institutions actually to support street art, because it does really change the atmosphere of the streets. And since we're already talking about the audience, I wanted to ask you about the audience at your events, because I remember you said that there was plenty of interesting discussions and happenings and how people reacted actually.
Yes, we had really, depending again in each city, because there are a couple of towns where family of these role models is alive and was coming. So, for example, in Kruševac, the mentioned athlete, her husband actually, we didn't know this, he lived close by and is actually seeing the mural from his wall. So he was every day going to the artist and bringing her food and talking to her, and I was on the phone with him every day, hearing how the mural is going, and he goes there and puts a flower now. The same was in Grocka with this Brana Perović. Her whole family, I think 12 people were there, and they were all very emotional, and we always give them the floor to say something about these women, because they can always say some personal story. And I'm very much looking forward to Tutin, because Hafiza Demirović's daughter is a 74-year-old lady who lives in Brussels, who's coming to Tutin especially for this. So yeah, so when it depends, but for example, depending also on these women. So this Nevena Nikolić, she was trainer of young athletes, and we had a hall full of young, beautiful girls who were really almost crying and wanting to tell their stories about her. So this was very, very emotional. Then it was very interesting. In one town we had a room full of women, 60 women, for example. And I asked, how come? I mean, where are the men? You know, it's nice to talk about gender equality, but we also want men to talk about gender equality. And they said, oh, we just invited all women employed at the municipality who occupy any important position to come. We thought, okay, maybe this was not the audience we aimed for, but in the end, They also got interested in street art, and they take care of the mural. And we keep receiving photos of these. We keep receiving photos of these murals, and people always make selfies and send us and give us good comments. For example, today in Niš, I hear from my colleagues that it was a lot of architects, because it is an architect is in question. So I think that through this, you do gain a little bit more of a different audience. Of course, we always ask for a wall that is in a street that has a lot of traffic, and that it is kind of visible, because we really do want to go outside of the usual circle. So I guess the general population and people that are interested in murals and street art would already see it, but through this, I think we also try to reach out a little bit to different audiences. So we try to invite high schools, for example, to motivate teachers to bring kids and so on. So it's been quite a diverse audience, and we are actually very happy about it.
Thanks. So we have time for one more question, and I wanted to ask, what would be your number one takeout from this event, Christine? Like, yeah, just like, well, if you have three, you can say three, but like, what was the biggest experience that you can actually employ in your further work, and something that you figured out, like what was actually about the street art that brought you some new insight when it comes to art in general? Philosophical questions.
Yes.
Okay, you want to hear something about street art? It's difficult now to answer. What I've learned from this project is that, like, if you have a general idea, it's not always crucial that you know how things will turn out. It's important that you have the spark of an idea, the direction where it should be going, but the rest you can develop on the way. And you can develop it very nicely by talking to other people. I mean, depending on what kind of project you want to do, but actually the way of like talking to several people, gathering more information, different points of view, and then somehow processing it and pouring it into something that will become then the project is actually quite rewarding. It takes a lot of time, but it's actually a way of working that I like. And it's also the way you get feedback on the way, and so you can like also make adjustments, or there are like more people participating, and so adding details that you would have never thought of. The image that I showed you of like the hidden urban explorer instruments, we would never have had that idea probably if we had been working for 3 years on the exhibition and like doing trillions of research. But it was also for us fun to discover that all these little things that happened on the way, and also the way they were playing with the remains of the museum, with letters that we still had from other exhibitions. They would like arrange them together in new words, or take out some words to make it a new sentence. This was actually the best part of it, and like also the response that you get in this way. Yeah, so it's kind of a community project. I don't know how I mean, for you, Nevena, you have also spent a lot of time actually talking to a lot of people.
It is a communication, I think, on 10 different levels. But I succumb to that. As I said, our project is having a life of its own, and we are very happy to see it evolving. And we are at first there was like, there was a media report of, how did it say, a mural appeared on Belgrade Street. It's like, okay, how do you think it appears overnight? I mean, it's 100 square meter mural, but at first I was like, really, why didn't you inform us? And I was in my head trying to control it, but then exactly the same thing, I realized. The beauty of it is that there are so many ideas, there are many things. As I said, now Pianista invited Judith. We wanted to invite her to do a big mural, but we were only happy that somebody else invited her. We could support it, but then they organize it, it's their own, and so on. It really has so many things, and people come up with new ideas, This is also my takeaway. You have to be open because these are creative people, many new things come up, and this is how we started. We didn't even think about street art conference, but in the end I was the one, yeah, let's do it. And so it really, this is exactly the same thing. Let it live its own life, listen to people, they have something to say, other people have different ideas, and this is actually the beauty of it, yeah.
But my question for you is actually, would you do it again?
More difficult?
Would you do it again?
With this experience, yes, I would do it again. I would do it again. It's a very complex project. It is really, as Christina asked, I mean, contact with producers, with artists, with municipalities, with halls where the debates are, with the jury, with I don't know how many levels of communication. Sometimes I feel, you know, the sinking ship and you try to fill all the gaps, and then I think, okay, am I missing something? But this is also, this is leaking, it's leaking somewhere, you know? But actually I'm thinking of starting something similar in Montenegro next year. Maybe not with 10 murals, this is really too big a deal, and also Montenegro is not so big as Serbia, but maybe 2-3 murals in Montenegro, because we see that people like it and we discover new things. I learned so much about these women. There were a couple of them I never heard of, and now I read the poetry of Ljiljana Radošević, which is really beautiful. So yeah, I would do it again. But also, as said in the beginning, this is also my passion. I'm not a street artist, but I really enjoy it very much.
We actually had to find a special badge for Nevena of the little mural she loved. It had disappeared, so you know she's like really up for it. And okay, the last question for Kaldea is that now when you look at your evolution of your career and your style, what would you say were the benefits of working with institutions and their support, with their support? Like when we think about Paris, for example, and there's like huge support that is happening regarding graffiti and street art, especially like what I have in mind is this municipality of 30e in Paris that actually worked with the Itinerance Gallery, and they did like all these huge murals and completely transformed the whole area of the city. It's a huge thing. You can't really do it without the institution. And you know, now when you think about your career and what this collaboration with different large institutions brought to you, what would you say is the biggest take from that?
Okay, so what, I have to repeat the question because the sound is not the best. So what was the benefit for me as an artist to work with institutions?
Yes.
Okay, the first benefit was to work with serious people. When I really started to, like back in 2018, when I did this festival in Bangkok, that was really the first, I would say, real project that was totally serious from the start till the beginning, you know, from everything, you know. So that was for me one of the first benefits, is to see how it works when you work as an artist with someone who is serious. And all after that, you can deal with other people who are not institutions, you know, like private people, events, and so on. And so for me, it's one of the benefits. Working with something serious and being taken seriously as an artist, you know, and not as a bohemian, you know. Because many people, sorry, sunshine. Many people, I'm so sorry. I'm very bad at this stuff, so I have to carry
Don't worry about it. It looks as if you have sunshine in your hair, so it's really
because, you know, so many people, sometimes they think that as an artist, you are a bohemian and you can just live your life drinking water and, you know, eating grasses, you know, stuff like that. And sometimes they underestimate you and they underestimate your value and other stuff that goes with your value. So for me, that was one of the benefits. Working serious and being taken seriously, you know, as an artist. And I wanted to back from the question as an audience, you know. And I have to tell you that there is an audience I met and they didn't care about my work. And it was in Albania in Tirana, and there I did 2 murals with a friend, and people just didn't care. They just passed by, they didn't ask what we do, nothing. We were just like transparent, you know.
This is very, very unusual, I have to say, especially because Tirana at one point, maybe some 20 years ago now, got a huge prize because its mayor was an artist, and then he painted most of the facades in Tirana and made it like more colorful because it was very dark and gloomy. So it was like a huge thing, so for me it's surprising that nobody really cares about your work.
But, you know, maybe because we're not like painting big mural, you know, or like graffiti, so maybe they would just see us as vandal, you know, and they didn't care, but really they just didn't care. And maybe it has changed. It was in 2017, but I remember that people didn't care, you know, they really didn't care.
But I mean,
I didn't even ask for police, you know, stuff like that. They just didn't care.
well, that's also an interesting thing, you know, to experience. It's just you can do whatever you want. They don't even call the police. Great. Well, since now we have a little bit more time, I wanted to ask if somebody from the audience has a question. Or if not, is there anything about your projects and your experiences working institution to street art to institution? Is there anything that maybe it's important and I didn't ask you and you would like to say? No? Kaldea? Is there anything important that you think it would be good to say and I didn't ask?
Anything important to say?
And I didn't ask you about it, yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think. No.
Hi, I have a question for Kaldea, because you mentioned that all the cities and places where you go, they have like a big influence on your art. So is there something specific from Serbia, Belgrade and Novi Sad that influenced your art?
Cerapici. No, I'm kidding. No,
To each its own, so it's fine.
Okay, from Serbia. Okay, I would say what was the influence me from Serbia?
Yes. So what influenced you?
Okay, I would say the traditional outfit, because I'm really into that, you know. And I think that's because now all the countries seems to look like, you know. It's like all the culture blend together, you know. And for me, in each country, I always love to look back in traditional, because for me, traditional from each country, it's what makes them specific, you know. So I would say, like for Serbia and from many countries, I would say traditional outfits, for example. I didn't have the chance to make like murals about like a Serbian woman, but if I will do it, I think I will make it with some traditional fabric or gel, stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Might be an inspiration for your next visit to Belgrade. Like what, now in October, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so ladies, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for taking your time to do with us. I think these are important things to talk about and to discuss because they're the future of the art and the future of the institutions and the future of our streets. So yeah, we need to see, you know, what are the good stuff, what's the bad stuff, and how we can distinguish between them. But yeah, we're on our way of discovery. So thank you again, and hope to see you at some events or some, I don't know, like visits or murals or connecting the artists. So yeah, I wanted to say when you were showing up your artwork or talking about your artwork, like everything is connected. And like, for example, one of the artists that did this wall with the names of all the artists in Vienna, at the bottom there was a little name, it says Vonik, which is the guy from Serbia who lives now in Vienna and who works there. And actually we're gonna have a mural that was done in collaboration with one of the girls from Ripov crew that was we were connected to by Christine, and then of course like working with the Dutch embassy and everything, kind of a whole circle is getting, you know, together, and it seems that yes, this is a small world, it's a globalization, everybody knows everybody, but apparently in graffiti and street art world, literally everybody knows everybody. So it's always nice to do these things because they will reach the right people. Thank you again. Thank you, French Institute, for accommodating us and for helping in the organization. And yeah, see you at the next one.
On vous en prie. Merci Kaldea. C'était un grand plaisir.